Hi guys, it's Jax here. Making a video to show a couple of knives that I've made here. I just finished this it's a butter knife or a spread knife, for spreading condiments and butter and jam and stuff like that. So I gave this to my mom for her birthday. It was her birthday today. And I made this knife last night. So stainless steel butter knife blade. Just for kicks and giggles, I should have made it a clip point Bowie knife shape or a wee hawk or something. But I guess it wouldn't be much of a butter knife if I did that. So I made the slab handles out of some really nice wood. This stuff here, this purple heartwood. Some of it's white and some of it's purple, and some of the boards I have are brown, but it's really purplish in color, and it really makes a beautiful knife handle. I have another knife that I'll show you in this video that I made out of this stuff. So this is from a flooring company, I believe. So you might be able to find scraps if you go visit your somewhere in your city, a cabinet maker or a flooring company that would use all sorts of woods to floor people's houses and stuff like that. They might have all sorts of cut-offs and stuff like that, and maybe you could pick up some interesting wood from exotic places for cheap. For instance, this is purple heartwood from South America or Central America, so it's somewhat exotic. It's so it's pretty exotic that way. So that's what this is. I used aluminum rod and made rivets or pins or whatever from the aluminum. Stainless steel thin blade with flexibility. It's only a partial tang. It goes up to here because that's the size of the steel I had. I didn't have any more, so I had to stop there. So I filled the rest in with white vulcanized liner material. So that's a white liner in there. And my mom likes the spreading knives. She has one that's been in the family for a long time, and she made a comment not so long ago that she wouldn't mind having another one in case she was reaching for it or needing a knife like this, and it was in the dish in the sink with a bunch of soapy water waiting to be washed or something. So she mentioned she wouldn't mind having another one. So that's her birthday present, the butter knife. Turned out pretty nice, actually. She was really tickled with it. Speaking of my mom, sorry for the jiggly jiggles there. So what we have here is a Wharncliffe knife. It's I made this a little while ago, last year or something like that. So I had this really nice piece of ironwood, desert ironwood. So and a piece of Damasteel Damascus. I don't know how close up I can get to it. I always have a hard time seemingly filming Damascus, because when you see it in person, it looks a little bit different. It looks really good in person. I always seem to have a hard time capturing it on camera. So anyways, I'm gonna flick this little flashlight with a little filter on it on. And the reason I'm doing that is because ironwood, it's just beautiful stuff. I mean, I varathaned it, so that's what that shiny kind of, and if you touch it, you might leave a smudge, but that ironwood is just so beautiful, eh? Like, it's tremendously beautiful. I wish I could have done this video with a little more close-up settings, but then if I did, you wouldn't be able to see the whole knife all at once. because when I put it closer up, the iridescence or whatever, the ironwood really shows up, but it's a really beautiful wood. So I made this a full tang with black liners. Heat treated it and quenched it in oil. Has these little bevels on it, and it's a pretty thin blade stock here. I rounded off the spine, and it has a really nice, when you round the spine off like that, it takes on a nice smooth characteristic. This is from back in the days when I was using hardware store bolts for knife handle material, for knife, for handle slab bolts. So what I would do is I would go to a hardware store, grab brass or chrome plated brass, or you know, stainless steel bolts, stuff like that, and nuts. And I would drill a hole through the tang and the wood, and then drill a bigger hole to a countersink hole for the head to sit flush in. So I would stick that in. I would drill small holes, and then a countersinking hole, and then I would take a nut and grind it into a circle. Insert that nut into the countersink hole, and then grind the whole thing flush. So that was kind of my homemade handle bolt kind of thing there. So I'm going to do a video on this right away. This is an older knife. I'm going to do a video on this where I take it to the sharpening stones and I try to put a really sharp edge. I was kind of thinking maybe I'm going to film, hopefully I'm going to film it being a really nice mirror's edge put on it, and we'll see if that edge can split some hairs. Nice little comfy choil here. It's just it's a neat blade for the draw slicing or you know, whatever. But really neat blade. So those are my two that I have given my mom. So if you're interested in seeing this Damascus, this is Damasteel, and I got another knife to show you with Damasteel. Really neat stuff, stainless steel. It's high quality stuff. It is a powder metal technology like crucibles, you know, CPM 3V and S90V and S30V and whatnot. So it's a mixture of two metals. It's a mixture of RWL 34, which is a really high quality Swedish stainless mono steel, and it's a mixture of that. It's a Swedish equivalent of CPM 154, and it's mixed with PM 27, which is a powdered particle metal technology, similar to maybe Sandvik 12C27, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll tell a little bit more about that when I grab the other Damasteel knife, because I etch it in some stuff. So here's a I'm just trying to figure out where my focus settings are. So here's a file knife that I finished last week. Anyways, the handle turned out really well. The blade shape was a little bit different, but I ran into some problems in grinding, and the overall shape suffered due to that. It's got a convex edge on it. It is sharp. There's no file marks left on the spine, but there is some file marks left on the body. But this is that purple heartwood. This is that purple heartwood that I used, and it's really beautiful. I mean, I wish I could show you just how lovely that. It's almost like a wine-colored purple or red, or sort of like a amethyst kind of color. It's really beautiful. I used red and black spacer material, and it's dark on the spine, and that's from the wood being burnt on the belt sander. It's kind of neat, kind of a neat effect actually. And some of that wood has I really wish I could film this under greater detail and really show you, but I can't show you the whole knife at once. But and of course I turned that file into a stick tang, and then melted a bunch of copper wire into a big blob, and then while it was red hot, I hammered it into a thick slug to use as a kind of a washer, so that when I peened the stick tang, it adds a little bit of you know, in securing these blocks on. It kind of fixes those blocks on. It's also epoxied and stuff like that, but that's kind of the last measure there. So really comfortable ergonomic handle with very subtle bends in it, but turned out really super comfortable. Nice flat back, and your thumb feels good on there. Very comfortable in the reverse position. It's the only convex edge that I've ever put on a knife. So this is made a lot like you would make a Scandinavian style knife, with the hidden tang and the peening and the blocks of wood, and all squished on and sandwiched together, and then you would shape that big rectangular block into a handle. So I gave that one to my brother, and so these I'll talk about this one really quick. This is the first knife I ever made, period. And the story is, I saw guys making blades. I really wanted to get into blacksmithing. So I saw guys making knives out of railroad spikes. Pardon me. So I took my dog one day and went to the railroad tracks and walked up and down them, and found all sorts of stuff. But anyways, so I found a whole whack of railroad spikes, really rusty ones. Some weren't so bad. It was just surface rust. Anyways, I was looking for a certain type of railroad spike, and that's the one that has HC stamped into the back where the head is here, and that was to tell me it was a high carbon spike. They use higher carbon spikes or stronger spikes for certain parts of the track, and then softer spikes in probably in the main line of the track. And also they use different types of railroad track. For instance, my dad has different types of railroad track on the wood stove here. So people make anvils out of them, and that's what my little anvil is. But this railroad track's different than that railroad track, and that railroad track's different than that railroad track. Different heights and thicknesses and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure they use different kinds of tracks depending on what the geography of their terrain is. Like they might use heavier duty railroad spikes and track on turns and corners and stuff like that. So stuff that isn't on the, I guess, maybe main line. So anyways, I found a bunch of these spikes, brought them home. At this time I had blacksmith coal, and so I threw that in this little hand crank forge that I had, and took an anvil out in the yard and pounded on this thing. There's a bit of a forge marks left in it, like a forge scale. Kind of a neat little design. And then when it was red hot, I clamped this part in the vise here, kind of like this. Like this, and then this was red hot, and then I stuck a crescent wrench on here and twisted the handle to achieve those twists there. And then later on I kind of cleaned up the blade on a belt sander, put kind of a little bevel on it. It does have a distal taper. It's kind of neat. It's really neat. Really heavy, as you can imagine, because of that great big head. Just a word of just a side note here. The head of these giant spikes is really comfortable. It's almost like it's made for a knife pommel type of thing. Really tough material. This is high carbon. So when it's when it's stamped high carbon, it's probably 0.3 or 0.4% carbon, which could serve as a knife. I mean, a lot of people would tell you that you need a little bit more carbon to hold an edge, but you could indeed make a knife out of this and actually cut with it, but it wouldn't hold an edge for very long. What this will be is probably tougher than any knife out there. Like, you know, I don't know for sure, but I mean, you know, those low carbon steels are tough. I mean, tough as nails, literally tough as a nail. And this is a big nail, so this might be tougher than anything out there, and that's why they use it for something crazy like railroad, keeping a track on its timber there. I don't know if you guys know this, but mainline track is, I think, high carbon steel, like 1080 or something like that, because of course it has to have decent strength and wear resistance or whatever. So I think mainland track, I think your anvil is probably like the equivalent of 1080 or 1075 or something like that. So I gave this to my dad on Father's Day, and this is the very first knife that started it all. So that's a couple years old already. One day, I told these stories before in some of my videos, but I used really low quality filming techniques to I wish I could get a close-up of this guy and show you the pattern on that Damascus. So I used really low quality filming to show you this. But this is so one day I was at the Bark River website, and I really liked the look of their knives. I mean, so there was one there. There was a whole bunch. I liked a lot of Bark River knives, but they also had one called the Pro Scalpel. And I thought that was really neat. And then I saw one called the Little Carver. Of course, I didn't have the money to get myself a Little Carver. I'm not too sure how much it cost, but I didn't have the funds for it at the time. What I did have, however, was a hunk of Damasteel and this exotic wood from Africa. It's called Palo Rojo, or Rojo wood. I really wish I could show you a close-up to do the wood justice. It's an orange wood. It really struck me as this orange wood, and so this is one of my finer pieces of work here. So this is a tiny knife. You might call it a neck knife or a small little knife, a fixed blade that you could wear on your belt and not notice it too much if you are really sensitive to carrying a lot of weight. And you didn't like a lot of weight. Nice red liners, pretty thick blade steel there, stock I should say, 3/16 or something like that, with nice red liners. And brass hardware. I think I did a little bit of a different technique for this one here, but it turned out really well. Again, I went to my hardware store and got brass bolts and ground them into a circle shape, countersunk them in there, and then on this side it was the probably the head with the Phillips and whatnot, the part you'd screw in, and then I grinded that flush, so it really turned out looking like pins. But so I tried all sorts of different finishes because Damasteel could be finished in a lot of ways. I heat treated this in a hand crank forge because this is stainless steel, and it needed a temperature that justified using the forge. So I had to heat this up until it was glowing, probably in the yellow kind, and which is, you know, so I wanted the forge for that. So I did this with the forge, quenched it in oil, and then I hit it with a really deep acid etch. I was using hydrofluoric acid for my etches, really dangerous stuff apparently. So I was using 10% hydrofluoric acid. I think they used that at the slaughterhouse to clean and disinfect blades and take rust off of stuff. But this blade is beautiful. So back to my story there. Bark River has the little Carver. It's a little Warncliffe. I can't remember if theirs was a kind of a recurve, because this one turned out that way. It's got a really nice long, 17 degree, so otherwise 34 degrees inclusive bevel system on it. So 17 degrees a side, and no secondary bevel. Oh yeah, also this is one of my full flat grinds. So I don't know if you could see, but the whole thing is a flat grind. If you can make that out. Sorry guys, I don't know if you can make that out, but so anyways, it's one of my flat grind blades with a really high quality 1 or 2000, probably a 2000 grit mirror polish on the edge. This thing is ridiculously sharp. No secondary bevel. This texture in the Damasteel is etched really deep. I hit it with steel wool. It turned out beautiful. Absolutely stunning. Just one of my finest pieces ever. And of course, all my knives usually feature some sort of little flaw, and this one's no different. It has a little flaw in the ricasso area where I couldn't get the grind lines equal, but just down here, the rest of the thing is fine. The full flat and everything. It turned out really nice. I wish I could show you a little bit more about this guy. So I made a sheath for it with a flashlight holster. So I made a sheath with a flashlight holster. Pardon me, there's a little tuft poking out, and then a plastic insert there. This is just some paracord off a flashlight. So ballistic nylon or whatever type of sheath, a little belt loop or whatever. Also a belt loop that's sewed on, and then of course the knife pops in there like that. So beautiful little knife. And I've already shown this one. This is just a recent piece of work, but I think I was going to mention this. I think I had this knife in here to mention. I was going to try to say something about making. I was going to go into all sorts of different things, but I guess the video turned out a little bit different. I was gonna show you guys all sorts of beautiful woods. Like this is a piece of bamboo that was given to me. Solid bamboo. It's not any kind of composite or anything like that. It's pure bamboo, and it's from bamboo flooring. So it's looking really yellow in the camera light. Get it out of the camera light, but so that's really neat, eh? Good for cutting little handle slabs out of and stuff like that. Beautiful stuff. And that's the reason I had this one here. I was going to talk about how awesome it is to use different types of wood, and for some reason I guess I'm not going to do that. But I was also going to talk about knife making legends like Bob Loveless and Bill Skagel, who inspired Randall of Randall Knives. One day Randall saw the beauty of this Skagel knife. These are legends of bladesmithings. And I was going to talk about Phil Wilson, a guy who might be the best heat treater in the world. His blades are no nonsense hunting and fishing blades. Nothing's there that isn't needed. And he is known on the blade forums and on the websites and by his customers. He does heat treat. He uses awesome steel like CPM 10V and S90V and you know, CPM S125V and really high. His edge retention is off the charts on his knives. He makes really high performance knives. Just nothing, they're on a different level. Even among custom makers, he's kind of godlike. He's up there. He's Phil Wilson, and his company's called C-Mount. C and Mount, like mountains. C-Mount Knives. No nonsense. His edge retention and heat treatment is probably maybe the best there is. in the custom knife industry, and that's saying a lot, and that comes from the experts and people that know too. So he's the knife maker's knife maker. And same thing with Bob Loveless. If you guys don't know who Bob Loveless is, he's so influential, and stuff you're doing with your knives, you are probably directly influenced by Bob Loveless. You know, he makes drop point hunters. He's dead now, but he died. Some of his knives lots of his knives are usually a few $1,000s up to who knows what, but I saw a couple for 20 grand. And he makes amazing knives. He's the one that came up with the drop point classic hunter design, and his knives are truly beautiful. And William or Bill Skagel is a blacksmith and knife maker from the turn of the century, who's the granddaddy of them all in terms of this century's or last century's knife makers. This really turned out to be a beautiful knife. This super comfortable, Scandinavian style. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I guess the video didn't turn out like I hoped, but you know, if you're interested, maybe go take a look at Bob Loveless, Bill Skagel, really famous amongst the knife makers, in the knife makers world. You know, stuff like that. So anyways, guys, Jax again here from the garage. And before I go, another mystery here. My grandfather's file knife. Look at this distal taper in it. How the hell? This is what I'm wondering. You can't see it because I don't have a macro, but there's file marks of the original file on this thin part of the blade. Even up here where the blade is that thin. And let me just turn it around. Anyways. How the hell did he do that? If you've made a file knife before, look at how thick this thing was. How did he thin that much metal out and there's still texturing way up here? I have no idea how he did this. Look at these huge rivets. This thing, I don't know if this is 40. I already showed you this, sorry. I was gonna ask my dad tonight if this was how old my grandpa was when he made this thing. It's got some dents from me banging it through a solid frozen deer, but that's a real mystery. If you've made a knife and you've put a taper in it like that out of a file, how the hell is there still file texture down here when it's that thick, when the knife started out as this thick? Must have been the file or something, but my grandfather's dead now, so I can't ask him. Anyways, guys, Jax here. Thanks for watching my videos as always. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.